Welcome to Miles to Go, Going Away to College Exit Workshop. Here's where this conversation starts to get it's very dark. And I apologize for that. And I'm going to give you some positive information at the end. Okay, let's make sure we understand this isn't all terror. And yet the beginning is really awful. It's basically about women and alcohol. College women, now you might think that college binge drinking is a male game, and mostly it is percentage wise. But here's an article from the Alcoholism Clinical and Experimental Research Journal, and it says this. College women exceed the NIAAA drinking guidelines more frequently than college men. Female college drinkers exceeded the national drinking guidelines for weekly drinking more frequently than their male counterparts did. Women experience alcohol-related problems at lower levels of alcohol consumption than men do. Even if you hold constant for weight, there are differences in terms of how alcohol affects men and women. For example, men have more of an enzyme in their stomach, gastric alcohol dehydrogenase, that lowers the amount of alcohol that makes it into the bloodstream. So basically, guys get less bang for the buck per drink than females do. And this isn't a gender issue, by the way. This is just biological sex, male, female. There are biological differences between the two. Also, women have less blood going through the bloodstream than a man does at the same weight. So alcohol gets more concentrated in their bloodstream. So women suffer more consequence from drinking than men do. And so this says it's not just a male thing. Drinking and abuse, dangerous transition for high school to college for women. Increases in young women's drinking during the transition from high school through the first year of college can have dangerous physical, sexual, and psychological implications. The study showed that among women who drank alcohol during the first year of college, rates of physical and sexual victimization were substantially higher for the women who did drink as compared to women who did not. In addition, odds of first-year college sexual victimization significantly increased with each pre-college psychological symptom. Look at the two that they see necessary to list: anxiety and depression, and each pre-college sexual partner a woman reported. Women who increased their drinking experienced nearly 5 negative alcohol-related problems during the first year of college. Those problems included a variety of consequences such as an inability to do homework or study for a test, passing out or fainting suddenly, engaging in consensual sexual activity that they regretted later, physical assault, sexual assault, theft, and robbery. Women who drink experience 5 of those consequences in the first year of college on average, as opposed to women who don't drink, who rarely experience those. Here's a really problematic aspect to this conversation, okay? This is from Slate magazine. The author's name is Emily Yoffe. And it's interesting because the headline puts a lot of people on defense right away. It's a big deal. College women, stop getting drunk. It's closely associated with sexual assault. In parentheses, it follows, and yet we're reluctant to tell women to stop doing it. As soon as the school year begins, so do reports of female students sexually assaulted by their male classmates. A common denominator in these cases is alcohol, often in copious amounts, enough to render a young woman incapacitated. But a misplaced fear of blaming the victim has made it somehow unacceptable to warn inexperienced young women that when they get wasted, they're putting themselves in potential peril. Let's be totally clear. Perpetrators are the ones responsible for committing the crimes, and they should be brought to justice. But we're failing to let women know that when they render themselves defenseless, terrible things can be done to them. Young women are getting a distorted message that their right to match men drink for drink is a feminist issue. The real feminist message should be that when you lose the ability to be responsible for yourself, you drastically increase the chances that you will attract the kinds of people who, shall we say, don't have your best interest at heart. That's not blaming the victim. That's trying to prevent more victims. And so we have to worry about the idea of the coupling up of women and sexual assault and alcohol. It's almost inseparable in most cases. Basically, what we want to look at is this. Alcohol and sex do not go well together on college campuses. This is probably some of the most daunting information in this whole presentation. About 20 to 25% of college women will be sexually assaulted in college. I don't even know how to process that one. That's insanity. That can't be. And yet every single time you look at these statistics, it will say that 20 to 25% of women will be sexually assaulted in college. 90% of campus rapes occur when alcohol has been used by either the assailant or the victim. 1 in 12 males on college campuses admit to having committed acts that meet the legal definition of rape or acquaintance rape. 60% of college women who are infected with STDs, including genital herpes and AIDS, report that they were under the influence of alcohol or drugs at the time they had intercourse with the infected person. Female college freshmen are at the highest risk for sexual assault between the first day of school and Thanksgiving break. If you take a moment and think about that just for a second, how many weeks would that typically be? It'd be 6. Students in fraternities are more likely to perpetrate sexual assault than non-fraternity men are. More than 50% of Greek students in the Greek system, such as fraternities and sororities, report heavy drinking as compared to under 35% for other students. And then lastly, 99% of sexual assault perpetrators are male. Here's the problem with that whole thing. The advice that they give college women on how to avoid those challenges is often so inadequate as to be almost unusable, and sometimes it's actually just wrong. It's counterproductive. For example, frequent advice that women are supposed to take about drinking includes things like this. The advice: know your limits. Avoid drinking too much. Alcohol impairs your ability to make smart choices. Here's the problem. If you're limiting your alcohol consumption, that means you're going to drink some of it. Here's the thing about alcohol. The first 2 drinks give you permission to have the next 6. By definition, what alcohol does is remove control. More advice. Talk to your date beforehand to make sure you're on the same page about where the night is going. Well, that should be possible. That should be the case. Here's the problem. Young women arriving at college campuses have widely been socialized to be friendly and likable, which can blind them to the aggressive advances they may encounter at campus parties and also make them very unlikely to say, this is the behavior I expect from you when you're going out on a first date. It would be great if we could do that. Rarely do my students say they actually do that. They're embarrassed to do that. They don't do it. They don't self-advocate. The advice says, don't go back to someone's room or leave a party with someone you don't know well. That might be the worst piece of advice you ever get in your life. Don't go back to someone's room or leave a party with somebody you don't know well. That would suppose then that the person you don't know is the person you have to be afraid of vis-a-vis sexual assault or victimization. Here's the problem. According to the American Journal of Public Health, fully 84 to 98% of campus sexual assaults are perpetrated by an acquaintance, a classmate, a residence hall neighbor, a date, an intimate partner, or a friend of the victim. Essentially, what that says is this: don't go back to somebody's room or leave a party with somebody you know, because that's who's going to assault you. And that's heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking and troubling and so incredibly negative. And yeah, if you don't know what the danger is, you can't avoid the danger. Here's the thing. There is some good news. Not all the advice is useless. The advice here: take a self-defense class. Great idea. I love the fact that a lot of my schools actually provide that for their female students. And yet, here's the problem. It's hard to tell if the class you take or the instructor you work with actually taught you something that's going to protect you. Well, here's the good news. This is the best news I have in this entire presentation. There's a program now which was pioneered by a woman in Canada. Her name is Charlene Y. Sen. It's called the EAAA Sexual Assault Resistance Program. Assess, acknowledge, act. It's also called Flip the Script. Here's why they call it the Flip the Script program. The social script we often hear says this: women should live in constant fear of sexual violence. Women must sacrifice their freedom to dress how they want, go where they want, and socialize how they want in order to avoid sexual assault. If a woman is sexually assaulted, she's at least partly to blame. And it's a man's responsibility to initiate sexual activity that he wants, and it's a woman's responsibility to say no if she isn't interested. Do you think that script is wrong? We do. So here's what we have to offer you, okay? In a field with little definitive evidence for what actually works to reduce sexual assault, the Flip the Script program has shown unusually encouraging results. A randomized control conducted in Canada found that women who completed the program were half as likely to be raped and 63% less likely to experience an attempted sexual assault. I read one time about this program that for every 22 women who take the program, a rape is averted. And that's magic. That's definitive, peer-reviewed, published evidence that there is a thing you can do out there. Here's the sad part about this, though. Even though there's a program that works, currently, according to their website, 3 universities in the entire United States offer this program: Stanford, the University of Iowa, and Florida Atlantic University, which was the pioneer campus that introduced the program to America. Maybe before you make a final choice, you should ask your prospective schools if they offer this program. If they don't, ask them why not. There's a note here. The creator of the program is currently working to adapt this program for high school age students, and that's good news. The Social Programs That Work website rates this program, the EAAA Enhanced Sexual Assault Resistance Program, as top tier, and crimesolutions.gov rates it as effective. Now, there's other things that are going on out there which help us to negate or avoid sexual assault. I went to school at the University of New Hampshire. They pioneered at UNH 2 programs called Bringing in the Bystander and Know Your Power. These are programs designed to empower people in social settings to short circuit or prevent sexual harassment and sexual assault. They're currently available in over 500 colleges and universities. This program is rated by crimesolutions.gov as promising. The National Center on Domestic and Sexual Violence has an extensive list of programs and resources for students under the heading Sexual Violence/Assault on Campus. So there's a lot of programs out there. We can't cover them all today, but I'm really heartened by the fact that the EAAA Sexual Assault Resistance Program exists and that you can get it if you insist that it's meaningful on your campus. One of the reasons that colleges say they don't do this, okay, it's expensive. It's hard to train the trainers for the program. It costs, I think Charlene Wysen, who I spoke with a couple of years ago, said it's about $40,000 to train the trainers for a college program, which then can train a whole bunch of women to protect themselves. Thank you very much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. I hope this was helpful in letting you know a little bit of information about how to decide how you proceed from right now through the first semester of your freshman year of college. If it did, I'm really happy that that's the case. Have a nice day. Have a nice, successful life. Take care.